Hello.
Hello,
Hello,
everybody.
everybody. Hello, hello, hello. I'm trying to get it on my phone because when people be making comments, I'm trying to watch what people say. He helping me out anyway. But hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Marriage Motivating Moments with yours truly, Eliana Connie and Emmanuel. We are so happy that you have decided to join us. Whether you're checking us out on the replay or you are here live, we want to say thank you for joining and helping us to continue the conversation on the sacrifices, self-sacrifice that we need to make in
No,
our
marriage.
marriage.
No, the topic is marriage is based upon self-sacrifice. It's a difference. Marriage is based. That means the foundation of marriage is self-sacrifice. I just wanted to interject that.
Okay. Again, we always go into this. It's a mix of words. Okay, he does that to me all the time when we even not on live. He has
words and languages
words
make
and
minds.
languages make
So you
minds.
got to
And
put
what
it
you
correctly.
speak out of your mouth, you shall have. You have to say it correctly, and what you put it out into the atmosphere, it has to be stated correctly.
But before we get started, because I know she has a lot to say tonight, but before we get started, we want to let you know our page continued to be hacked. Okay, so now they hacked our pages and they're sending out false notifications to our friends on our pages and asking you for your Cash App and your Zelle. Let me tell you something. If I'm going to ask you for some money, it's not going to be on social media messaging and just tell you, asking you for your Cash App and your Zelle, because I won't need that. But the fact of the matter is, these bandits out here, there's a lot of wickedness, and they always that wicked spirit always want to interject its evil self into evil self into the affairs of the righteous. So I just want you to be aware of that. Please do not accept them. Do not respond to them. If you want to give away some money, hey, I can give you my number now. I give you my real Cash App. But for right now, please don't respond to them. Do not. I mean, it's just a waste of time and energy. So we're going to move on into the subject, because I know my wife wants to pick it up from part 2, and she looking all gorgeous and everything out here. I mean, showing all my business. Oh, girl, what you doing? Pull that thing back up. What's wrong with you?
Can you stop?
Well, you got
just leave it.
That's a little bit too much.
Oh my God.
It's a little bit too much all out here.
Stop, bro. You're messing up my outfit.
I ain't messing up nothing.
They stop it.
Oh my goodness.
I can't. They stop. Now stop messing it up. Now it goes like that.
What you mean to go like that? Who said it go like that? See, the marriage is based on, there you go. That's the kind of self-sacrifice I want. There you go. There you go. Let's start this show right. Cover myself up.
Okay, we're going to compromise right there. Okay.
That ain't compromising.
Stop. Can we go on now?
That's not compromising. What are you doing here? See, these are self-sacrifices. We're going to show you right now. There you go. I'm like Muhammad Ali. Tell that woman to put on some clothes. What's wrong with you?
Listen, everybody. Thank you so much, everybody. Oh my gosh, marriage motivating moments, right? Ladies, help a sister out.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you for joining today. Thank you. We are going to continue.
She want me to be all tight up like this here. Every time y'all go on the show, she want buttoning up. She want me like this. On all shows, she want me like this here. This is how she want me. On all shows, she want me all covered up. Yeah, but it look nice. And then it look nice too.
Okay, babe, whatever.
She want me all tight up. I can barely.
We done spent 5 minutes at a time talking about this shirt.
That's good. That's good sacrifice.
I can't.
Okay, go ahead.
So our last episode, we talked about the marriage is the foundation. Foundation of marriage is self-sacrifice, and we wanted to continue the conversation because after we finished that conversation, we had conversation with others, and I wanted to talk from the wife's perspective about the sacrifices that we make as women, as wives, as mothers, in our marriage, in our relationships. And I also going to ask my husband a couple of things because our last live, he really delved into from the man's perspective and what is expected of the man and what is expected of the woman in this thing called sacrifice. It was interesting because when I even went to look up the word sacrifice in the dictionary, right? I Googled it and I tried to find a definition for a sacrifice. And I thought it was interesting because I could not find an actual sound definition for the word sacrifice, other than they continue to tie it into a spiritual aspect, right? And so I was saying to myself, okay, they keep saying that it's really a spiritual aspect, but in marriage and in relationship, it's actually an everyday occurrence. It's not just having to do with our spirit, but it's something that we have to do consistently on the regular. Both men and women, both husbands and wives, we make sacrifices consistently, and it doesn't mean that we're going and sacrificing bulls and heifers and cows and slaying lambs and spreading blood over the doorposts and things of that nature. But in our everyday lives, we make sacrifices in order to bring a balance, or in order to keep peace in a relationship. And so I wanted to read what the two definitions that I did point out. One definition said, the Hebrew term usually translated sacrifice is korban, literally means drawing near. Just as the Latin term, then, sacrifices of all kinds are linked with an approach or divinity, again, spiritual side. And then the other definition was the act of slaughtering an animal or person, or surrendering a possession as an offering to God or to a divine or supernatural figure. And I wanted to talk about that for a minute, because that's where I was talking about initially, that they were saying that it ties into a spiritual aspect or a spiritual way of life when you talk about sacrifices. And I guess they say that because when we hear about sacrifices, for the most part, we read it in the spiritual books about sacrifices being made. But however, in everyday relationships, sacrifices are being made. I actually asked a few people anonymously to give me some examples of what they thought that they felt like they needed to sacrifice or had sacrificed during the course of their marriage, something that they had to actually give up, or something that they had to actually make a change in order for it to become a peaceful resolution. And I spoke to one person and I asked them, what is it that you feel like you sacrificed in your marriage? And she responded with, the sacrifices I make is I cook dinner on Saturday morning, or I go to the mountains with my family, or I'll take my children, on a trip, a day trip or something like that. And so my response to her was, do you enjoy those things? And she responded, yes, I absolutely enjoy them. And I responded back to her, then they are not sacrifices. Because sacrifices a lot of times are things that you will put aside, that something that you want to do in order for something to become peaceable, or to make a change, or to bring harmony in a relationship. Why are you looking like that? Because you thought that was funny? No, the sacrifice?
I just didn't agree.
Get it?
No, I didn't agree with that at all.
What?
I wait till I come.
But what didn't you agree with? That sacrifice is taking the kids to the park and stuff is not really a sacrifice?
No, none of that is sacrifice.
That's what and that's what I responded. I said no, but I responded to the individual. I said, no, that's not a sacrifice. Not if you're enjoying it, you're having fun.
Well, you got to understand what you're saying.
Okay.
You're saying that based on Mann and Webster's definition of sacrifice, to serve the Creator, you are sacrificing. Do we get blessings from our sacrifice and serving Him and following His ways and His thoughts and His guidance? What reward do you receive by sacrificing, by giving up the ways of this world and accepting His directions? Adam and Eve, for an example, the first marriage, had to make sacrifices. When they broke those sacrifices, what was the penalty for doing such? You look at Noah and the prophet Noah and the prophetess, his wife, Miriam. You look at Abraham, or Ibrahim, the preference of the language, and you look at his wife, Sarah, and Hagar. these women and these men made sacrifices. Abraham made sacrifices and was even willing to sacrifice his son to please the master of the universe. And as a result of that, he won the favor of his friendship. So when we talk about sacrifice, and it's interesting that when you talk about sacrifice based on what they define in words and languages make minds, what they define, they attach it to spirituality and divinity and etc., because that's what it is. And we are spiritual. We are actually spiritual beings having a physical experience here on this planet. And we're operating in that kind of energy. So when you talk about marriage, it's based upon self-sacrifice. And I believe my wife is going to get to some of this, but we have to recognize as men what our deen is and women what our deen is. And the question is, are you willing to sacrifice what you see in this deceptive world? Because the sacred writers say that 99.9% of this world is built on deception and deceit. So therefore, are you willing to sacrifice and give up this world, in it, but not of it? So there's a real understanding when you say you in it and not of it, then what is it that you are of? You are of the spiritual kingdom of the master of the universe. So everything that you do is a sacrifice, and it's a sacrifice with great rewards. It's a sacrifice with great blessing. When a man is being responsible for his family, he's sacrificing and saying, hey, I ain't running the streets, or I'm not doing XYZ. I'm going to take care of those things that's required of me. And that's where you find the blessing in that. So that's why I'm gonna hold up. I'm gonna hold up and let you get to your thing.
It is the wife's perspective tonight.
The wife's perspective.
And I do want you to interject, babe. No, I do want you to interject.
If it ain't coming no longer, I'm 100 with it. So
okay, and I want you to continue to be 100, babe. But I know it's spiritual. We know that. But everybody ain't on here. It's not spiritual. So I'm talking about from the wife's perspective in a very natural.
But that's the
purpose
of us being on here.
Okay.
Is to help people
and that's what we're going to do
from their condition, but they got to come into that spiritual realm and become and operate in that anointing and in that and seeking that kind of direction. You see what I'm saying?
I understand,
so I mean,
sir.
But you asked me a question, sister.
I didn't know that you was going to go on there.
Well, I mean, when you
I was going to let you do that at the end. So we not going to let you I was going to let you close it when you know.
I ain't going to close.
Okay, you're right. Because you just okay.
I ain't sitting over here silent now.
No, I wasn't gonna have you never silent. We know that you ain't never silent.
Right, now we're gonna keep this 100 now.
Okay.
I'm just telling you what it is.
All right, prophet.
Okay.
Let me
prophet, I ain't
continue.
no prophet. I ain't no prophet.
Let me see. All right, rabbi, as the kids say it. Yeah. Oh, you would say you ain't no rabbi.
They call me.
Okay, well, all right.
I'm just telling you what I am. I'm bearing witness. Oh, let's go to him.
Okay.
I'm with you.
Okay, and so
glory to God.
Back to what I was saying, and that is a very good point because you do have to always tie it in. And like I said, it was odd to me that there was no actual definition of sacrifice other than it was always tied into something that is divine or spiritual or spiritually connected or whatever. And so that is so very true. But however, I wanted to talk from the wife's perspective in the things that we believe as women, the sacrifices that we have to make. No, we're not sacrificing, like I said, blood, and we're not sacrificing animals, and we're not sacrificing our children, and we're not sacrificing bulls and heifers and goats and doves, but we do make sacrifices. Everyone, men and women, both make sacrifices to make sure that that foundation is strong and that foundation remains strong based on the commitment that we have made to one another. And so I asked them, and when the woman replied that, I said, well, if it's something that makes you happy, if it brings you joy, then it's not a sacrifice. It's not necessarily.
Sacrifice can bring you joy,
honey, but you're not letting me finish. If it's not a sacrifice that's bringing you joy, so if you're not sacrificing, and when you go to the park and you take your baby to the park, you're not sacrificing, like you're not leaving your job to go take the baby to the park. You're going because you enjoy what you're doing, because it's a great thing for you to do, to bond with your children or your grandchildren. That is something that I love to do. That is something that I enjoy doing. Now, if I sacrifice, when we talk about sacrifice, it's saying, okay, I have to work 7 days a a week, but I'm going to sacrifice this one Saturday, and I'm going to hold back from going to work because I know that I have to make these ends meet. I need to make this money, but I'm going to sacrifice that one day's pay, and I'm going to go ahead and go and take my children to the park or spend time with my husband or whatever. That is a sacrifice in the sense that it's out of your norm. It's not something that you're normally regularly doing, but because you want to make your children happy or you want to make your husband happy, you will make the sacrifice. It's just like from another perspective. There was a relationship. One woman talked about she had a relationship, a very tight brotherhood, a very tight sisterhood, or it was her and her brother. They weren't biological brothers and sisters, but they grew up like brothers and sisters from a very young age. However, because the husband was uncomfortable with the fact that he was not her biological brother, but they still had this ongoing sisterhood and brotherhood, somewhat like you would be. And so he was uncomfortable with the relationship, and he'd say, "Hey, it's nothing against the brother. You know, I don't dislike him or anything, but you are my wife now, and so your relationship with him does not need to be on that level anymore, and you need to just keep the lines between me and you open, and he don't need to be involved." Absolutely. And so she said that, so in order to, she felt like it was more important to have that relationship and that connection with her husband as opposed to trying to keep the relationship with the guy who was just like her brother, because she said, but she still felt like it was a sacrifice because it cut them off without, really even having a conversation or being able to say anything to him to let him know what was going on. But she felt like she made the sacrifice because it was more important for her to have that relationship, that foundation, that love, that commitment with her husband than to have that relationship over there on the other side, right? So those are the kind of things when a woman talks about sacrifice, when we talk about sacrifices or when we're among one another, we talk about the sacrifices that we will make. Say the husband has to go, let's say this, the husband wants to go back and get his education, right? And so the wife decides that she's going to support him in going back to get his education. So she's going to be the breadwinner. She's going to put the desire of what she wants to do on hold to make sure that he can go. She's going to pay for him to go back to school, whatever they're going to have to do to get the funds for him to go back to school, to be able to do what it is that he wants to do, because she understands that she recognizes in making that sacrifice that he's going to be better. He's going to get the education that he wants, and she's going to help him to push him forward and to propel him forward into that which his aspiration is at that time. Now, I would like to say that the same thing does happen. Husbands also make those sacrifices, because you have couples who the wife wants to go back to school. She may be a working wife. She might be one of those people who brings the finances into the household as well. However, she says to hubby, "Babe, I want to go back to school. Is it okay if I go back to school and then I don't work for the next year and a half?" And he agrees, and he says, "Okay, yeah, we're going to have to buckle down. We're going to have to make some sacrifices. We're going to have to cut back on these expenditures, but you go ahead and you go to school and you get your degree, because at the end of the day, the sacrifice that you're going to make is going to benefit the house in its entirety." So those are the kind of sacrifices that
I want to interject.
I'm talking about, that when as women we talk about sacrifices, those are the things that we're saying when we make sacrifice. And it's not just on the women's end, it's in the household altogether.
Yeah, but this is what we misunderstand. Why did the Creator create us, man and female, and then create such an amazing institution called marriage? Half of our existence is faith, and the other half of our existence is marriage. You must have the both in order to be complete. That's just the way divine and scripture is written and in the sacred writings. Now, when the sacred writings or scripture, or when the master universe is speaking in regards to marriage, when the sacred writings, so you can't throw me off track. I'm still going to be on this thing, but
it's hot.
But when the sacred writings talk about marriage, and you talk about holy and divine, holy matrimony, it's talking about a whole nother thing when you talk about self-sacrifice. With the denial that based on the scripture of sacrifice is denying your inclinations, your attitude, your moods, your selfishness, your envy, your jealousy that creates between two mates. See, this is why most marriages are not being successful, because people don't really understand that marriage is based upon self-sacrifice. Now, what my wife talked about is absolutely brilliant as it relates to people coming to getting to develop to get to the point of what I'm talking about, because the master of the universe want us to sacrifice our inclinations. It's the same, and it's no different now, because there's nothing new under the sun. There's no different now in a marriage than it was with Moses and Marianne or Abraham, because we're talking about inclination, human nature, technology, all this other stuff. You know, he was living in huts, now you're living in these mansions. It's two different things, but nothing has changed in terms of our nature as human beings. So when we talk about marriage and self-sacrifice, the master of the universe is saying, for an example, if the woman controls the peace in the home, she controls the peace. She controls if a brother's going to have a peaceful night, a loving, caring night. So she has to be willing to make the self-sacrifice to do what? Discipline her tongue. Okay, the man has to make the sacrifice to do what? Be able to maintain, provide, and protect and uphold the entire book. So when we talk about self-sacrifice, marriage is based on self-sacrifice. I'm not talking about, and I'm not going to say it's superficial, but the essence of your nature as a man and a woman, and understanding that nature and your dean. So the self-sacrifice is to not, if you know that your mate is upset, or you know something is out of place, but you like, I want to speak my mind, I want to say what I want to say. No, but when you make the self-sacrifice, say, I'm going to hold my peace. I'm going to hold my peace. But it's but you make a self-sacrifice on your inclinations. Yeah. You follow what I'm saying? So when you do that, that's when the beauty of the institution of marriage continue to, you continue to grow and get stronger. So yes, what my wife is saying is totally correct, but we must understand that this is why, for an example, I'm gonna let her continue. In our home, there's nothing hanging that honors the man. But in our home, and in every Yehudin or Hebrew home, the virtuous woman is hanging. Why? Because we have to honor that wife of that home. We honor the wife of the home for a reason. It's not the man that's being honored. On Shabbat or Shabbaton, on the Shabbat, for an example, you're not honored. I'm just sharing this for point of reference. You don't, you honor the master of the universe and the wife of the home. There's a reason for that. That's why it tells us in the Sacred Writers that we must love our wives just as we love ourselves, and we must honor her more than we honor ourselves, because of the self-sacrifice that women make when she's upholding herself on the virtues of a virtuous woman.
Let me say this. The sacrifices that we make as women is very real, whether it's turned superficial, whether it's turned in the flesh, whatever. For us as women, those sacrifices are very real. My husband talked about that there's nothing new under the sun, and that there's nothing that changes. But even if you read scripture, when you read the stories of the women, they sacrificed. They didn't necessarily go and, like I said, sacrifice doves and things of that nature, make blood sacrifices, but they made sacrifices to make sure that the peace that my husband is talking about was in the home. And so the sacrifices, when we talk about the sacrifices that the women make, or from a wife's perspective, we are talking about those sacrifices that we make to continue to make sure that there is peace in the home, right? So even for myself, like initially when I found out, and my husband and I, we went through what we went through. For me, the sacrifice was to, no matter what, I was going to stay with my husband. I was going to maintain, I was going to fight through the pain, the tears, whatever it took. I wanted to stay with my husband. I wanted my children to be raised in a house with a mother and father. I wanted their father to be their example for them. I wanted them to see this man and the essence of who he was and how he was a great provider, how he was that stand-up kind of man, how he was a man's man. And I did not want to take them away from that. Even in my own hurt and even in my own selfish way, I wanted to pack up and say, I'm out. Right? That would have been the selfish side of me that would have did it. Right. But in that selfish side of me didn't really want to do it because I was willing. I said, I will make the sacrifice and endure whatever it's going to take for me to endure this. Because it did take a lot for me to endure, to stand up and put on a smile and be that strong woman and still be mommy and still do all the things that I needed to do to make sure my household was a whole household. Yes, it was sacrifices that made, but it was the sacrifice that I chose based on, like my husband just said, because you wanted to have that peace. You wanted to have that calmness in your home. You wanted that love to be ever present. And even though I felt like the spirit of error, the wickedness was constantly warring at my marriage, warring at my family, and constantly trying to tear us down, I said, I will be the sacrifice, and I will be the one that makes sure that this family stays together. It's just like my husband says that he always prays when he's in his prayer time. He always says to God, listen, make me the sacrifice so that my children will not have to experience the things that I had to experience, and break the bloodline and break the curse and break the generational curses, and let it stop with me. Let me be the sacrifice so that my children do not have to experience the things that I had experienced. And I think that that's the part when we talk about from the wife's perspective, we talk about the sacrifices that we make. The sacrifices that we make a lot of times and it boils down to even this. We're married, right? We got married right away. We got children, right? The children, you got children that got to go to school, then they got to go from school, and then they got to go to basketball practice. And they leave basketball practice, they got to go to this, they got to go to weight training and all these kind of other stuff. And normally, for the most part, mommy is sacrificing and making all those things happen. Boom, da boom, da boom. While daddy is on this side, right, making things happen, making sure the bills are paid, making sure there's food on the table, making sure the money is provided for the food on the table, because mommy got to turn around and come home and cook too, and she got to change the diapers, and she got to do the laundry, and all in between, all that stuff that we do. And listen up, men, there are things that mommy would love to be doing other than that, right? But because she understands her role, and she understands that what it's going to take for this household to run smoothly, then she is going to be that A, B, C, D, E, F, G type of woman, type of mom. And if she is not that, if you're newly married, if she is not that right now at this moment, she will become that, because it is a part of our nature. It's just like the woman in Proverbs 31. If you read it, it talks about how she would go to the market, and then she come back, and then she cook, and then she sew, and then while everybody was sleeping and her husband was over there meditating, she was still working diligently. And those are the kind of sacrifices from the wife's perspective that we are talking about. Not to discredit what the man does, not to say he don't do anything, but to say, yes, we salute you, we applaud you, we see what you are doing. However, make sure that you see what we are doing. Make sure that you applaud us. Make sure you celebrate the things that you think may not matter to us, and make sure you celebrate them, so that you understand that my wife is also making a sacrifice.
No, you got to understand something. That's why the man honors that woman. If you look at Musa, when he went up into the mountains and he came down, and you read how he was greeted by his wife, the prophetess Mariam. How was he felt so amazed, not only because of what he was experiencing with the master of the universe, but when he came down and that wife met him with such intimacy that he honored her, and he just honored his wife. And so when we come into that understanding, by we recognizing, like sometimes my wife will come home, and I'm done the laundry, I done the dishes, I done cleaned up the room. I do X, Y, Z. Maybe even
But
cook
yeah,
dinner
but they ain't
and things of that nature.
They not a lot of them out there.
But I ain't got nothing to do with all that.
So,
you understand what I'm saying?
for
But
my
what I'm trying to say, well,
who don't
no,
have
but I'm just
that,
trying. But see,
I'm just
just like one of her little mentees came to the home, and she like, Daddy decorated this entire house, unpacked everything, and put everything. Yes, they out there. Well, I don't know about what other men not doing. I'm telling you that when we look at and we honor her for the sacrifices that she makes, and some of the people say, well, why you do this? What else is there to do? I mean, like literally for me, what else is there for me to think about other than to look at how I can continue to improve on my deen as my spiritual development? Because how can I love the master of the universe and not love the heaven on earth that he blessed me with? And that's my wife. That's my issue. So the point I'm making is that yes, we understand, and that's because of the self-sacrifices that she makes, and the self-sacrifice that she makes more than anything else. And we had this intimate conversation yesterday on the sacrifices that, and we wasn't even talking about sacrifice. We was just talking about our own growth and development and where we are and what's most important and how we are to dress that so that we can be pleasing to each other as we serve the master of the universe. So for me, if her spirit is not right, then I got to do something in my spirit, and then she has to be checked to do something in hers so that we can have that type of harmony. Because I'm telling you, if the spirit of the woman in the house is not correct, it's going to throw off everything. So the point I'm making is that we must understand our nature, and we must understand our deen and what is required of us. And so therefore it would help us. And she's right, because that virtuous woman, I mean, we go on for days and months and years to talk about this, because she upheld the honor of her husband. She didn't entertain gossip. She ain't had no time to do this, that, and other. What was important was her upholding the honor of her husband and her household duties, because that woman didn't go to sleep till he went to sleep. Then that woman was up before the children and him was up and back into the same routine. Those are the type of self-sacrifices that we need to make. Now, I ain't doing that. I ain't cooking you nothing. I ain't honoring you nothing. I ain't running your bath water. I'm not doing nothing. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, now you got a problem here coming. Trust and believe. So when we come into how we must really not only submit to the master of the universe, but submit to his instructions on how we should govern ourselves. Because you got to understand something. We are only here, men. We are only here to correct the damage that we have done to our souls. So in our tikkun, we are only here to correct that, and he gives us a helpmeet. That's why he gave us a woman, a helpmeet, not M-E-A-T, but M-E-T, a helpmeet to help us refine ourselves. So that woman is going to check you. Now, one thing is for certain. You can act like you holy and divine. You step out of pocket, that woman going to check you. That's why she come from that bone that's bent, because she going to check you and bend you right back in the right position. So what I'm saying, and I'm going to let her keep going, is what I'm saying is that we have to refine ourselves. And that woman makes the sacrifice by being here on the planet with us. Go deep now, being here on the planet with us to help us refine ourselves and return to the master of the universe, where he will be pleased with us. That's why I say don't trust yourself until the day of your death.
I wanted to go back to something that you said, honey, when you talked about the woman will check you. And I wanted to say, in that check, sisters, you have to be careful how you check.
Yeah. No, it's a real process now.
Because I was telling somebody the other day, I was telling another sister who I was in counsel with, and I was sharing with her that the one thing as women that we have to learn to do, and I had to learn how to do it, because I grew up in a single parent home, and my mama would check you left and right, and back and forth, right? And so when I got
And
married,
she used a certain language.
I
too.
had to learn how to, because my husband was very strong-willed. I'm very strong-willed. He's very independent. I'm very independent. And so I had to learn. He said, talk about check. She will check you. But I had to learn how to check him in a position where he would receive it, right? And so I couldn't go at him, you know, fussing and arguing and then hollering,
Because
because
a woman's
it
tongue can
wasn't,
cut into a brother real quick, boy.
it wasn't getting
It's harder than getting knocked out when that woman's tongue cut into you a certain kind of way. So I can't have that.
So-
Can't have that.
So I learned over the years that, you know, he couldn't argue by himself, right? So I learned how to bridle my tongue, as I called it, you know, or I told her, I said, I learned how to swallow big pills, right? I used
That's
to go
a
into the
sacrifice.
bathroom
There you
and
go.
I'd go in to the bathroom and
There
I'd
you
look at
go.
myself in the mirror and I'd have
There
a
you
self-conversation with myself, say, listen,
Huh?
you
preaching,
can't
sister.
do this. You
You
gotta
preaching.
bring yourself together, pull it together. You don't want to have all this mayhem in your house. You want to have peace.
There
And
you
so you have to have those self-conversations. And sometimes I might go back and address it in that moment, or I just did not address it at all. And I just pray about it and let God handle it. And so you have to be careful when we say, you will check your man. You got to know how to check him, right? You got to know what to say and you got to know how to say it. A lot of
And when to
times
say
it's
it.
not what we say, but it's how we say it. And so if you want to get the proper response from that man, you have to know how to talk to him and you have to know how to say it in the way that he will be receptive of it. And the same goes for the men, because the men can cut at you with their mouths as well. You know what I mean? And so I'm not siding with anyone. I'm saying both. I'm saying all of us, husbands and wives, the marriage institution. We must learn how to communicate with one another. We must learn how to talk to one another. But the one thing I will say to my sisters that are on here, women cannot, real women cannot and will not respect a woman who emasculates her man in public for other people to see. You just can't do it. It's just not what you're supposed to do. And if you want to talk about the spiritual side and the biblical side and the righteous side of it, you are not supposed to do that at all. If you can't hold it, go in the bathroom, like I just said, and have a conversation. I don't care. Walk away, have a conversation with yourself, talk yourself down off that cliff, come back with your humble spirit and hold that thing, right? And then when you get to the house, right? If you have children, you need to think about that too, because the young women are always seeing us, the sons and the mothers and the sons. The sons and the daughters are always going to see their parents as an example. And so what I always say to women all the time, if you have daughters, it is important. And if you have sons, it is equally as important. People would say all the time, my son say, we never saw you argue with daddy. You never defended us. We never saw it. I said, listen, the reason why you never saw it doesn't mean that I did not have a defense when it came to you or on certain things, because you know, mommies, we're gonna talk daddy down, baby, you know, we're gonna do that thing, right? But the reason why you never saw us go to that point is because I never wanted you to think that is how a woman is supposed to talk to you, or how you are to be addressed in front of your children or by your wife if a situation arises. So no, you did not see it, and I tried very hard for you never to hear it. That was on purpose. Now, did those things happen? Yes, but I purposely made sure that you all did not see or hear those kind of interactions, because I wanted to make sure that I was the model for what you knew you were supposed to have in a wife. And so I want to say, as I close, and we are winding up, that sisters, yes, we do have to continue to make I'm sorry, I'm shouting. Sisters, I'm getting excited. I'm sorry, talk about my children. I go all the way there. But sisters, we do have to make the sacrifice consistently, right? And yes, it is true. Do we sacrifice more than our husbands do? Yes, for the most part, because we have to do those things in order for them, like my husband said, to stay in their place, to stay on their dean, and to accomplish what it is that they need to accomplish. We're going to make those sacrifices. We have to, because we have to get it done. And we understand and we recognize that when we help our husbands to get it done, then we are the benefits of that, right? So if one of the other women wrote in and she said they made the sacrifice on this point, and I'm closing. She said that there was a point when they were having children. There were several children in the home, and I think she was having her last baby, and her and the husband had decided, he had a very good job, and they decided, hey, okay, this last baby, you're gonna stay home. You're not gonna go to work. However, things changed, right? And the husband had to take a different position, right? So the finances weren't there that he thought was going to be there for her to be able to stay home. But since they had made the decision that mommy was going to stay home and sacrifice and be home with the children, that he was going to take a cut and pay. So what happened then when it affected the whole entire scenario? So now what? We can't go to the movies every week, right? We can't go to the mall every month. We can't do excessive shopping. We can't have cable. And so there were things that had to be cut back. So sacrifices had to be made, not just on the wife's part, but also on the husband's part. And something that she said that was so powerful, and at the end of what she said, but at the end of the day, it was the best thing we did, because now we are reaping the benefits from those sacrifices that we both made. So in my closing, remember this, brothers and sisters: sacrifice, yes. Self-sacrifice, yes. It is the foundation. It is a very intricate part of the marriage relationship. Can you do it? You absolutely can. Is it a must? It absolutely is a must. In order for the marriage to work and to grow and to develop and become all that God wants it to become, there are going to be sacrifices that have to be made. I will say this to the brothers: when you see your wife, or when you know your wife is making those sacrifices, acknowledge them. You may not be able to bring home a dozen roses, but you can bring home a rose from the local grocery store. Those are the kind of things that help us to know that, okay, he sees it. Not just your words, but by your actions, you're acknowledging the fact that you see me making these sacrifices so that we can become the best us that we can possibly be. Sisters, I want to encourage you. Listen, let's stay strong. Don't give up. Keep making the sacrifices, because at the end, like the other sister said, at the end of the day, or when you get down to them 30 years and them 40 years, and you look back at the sacrifices that you made, your husband's doing ministry, and you feel like he need to be having a 9-to-5, or he's a musician, and you out here working a 9-to-5, and then you coming home doing everything, and he's still tugging away at his career, or he's still working on his doctorate, or he's still working to become that lawyer, whatever the case might be, the sacrifices that you're making. Believe God that at the end of the day, when the story has continued to make its journal entry, you and your family will be blessed because of the sacrifices that you continue to make. Continue to stay strong. We love y'all.
Wait,
we appreciate y'all.
I got some closing remarks.
Okay, baby, go ahead.
Okay, I want to say this, and I don't want sisters or brothers to get the misunderstanding when my wife says women are making more sacrifice. There's no measurement in this. Men are built differently than women. We can't birth children. Our bodies can't expand. Our bodies do not go through a 7-10 day cycle period. A woman is built different, and we must understand why she is built different. She is physically built different.
Okay, we'll take it.
And no, that's the reality, because we as men must understand that the woman is the second self of the master of the universe. She's his co-creator, because every human being that comes into existence, in the mass majority of animals, come through a womb of a woman. So the woman is the womb that birthed all that's in existence. So therefore, she is totally built differently. And that's why the master of the universe had put so much on her, because in her physical nature, she endures pain regularly, either monthly through a cycle or during the birth of a child. So we must understand that is why we must honor her more than we honor ourselves. So she's built that way. So it's not about if a man is doing less. If you on your dean, then you doing what your dean requires you. That's why it's a saying, they say, work in your lane, stay in your lane. Her lane is her lane. My lane is my lane.
Well,
but,
no, we cross each other's lanes.
No,
you said you cook, you clean,
yeah, but
you
those
do
are
the laundry.
those are other. I do that. I do that stuff.
But I'm saying, but some men don't help their women in that way.
Let me tell you something.
Or their wives from that perspective.
And my Bernie man, let me tell y'all something, okay? I do that because when my woman come home, my wife come home, I want her all to me. So I don't want her to worry about washing no dishes. I don't want to worry about her cooking. I don't want her worrying about doing no laundry. I don't want to worry about her doing none of that stuff but tending to me. You understand what I'm saying?
No way. And sometimes you just do it in general.
Because I'm a tidy, I'm a clean guy. I don't like dirt. I don't like filth. I don't like, roaches and stuff like that crawling around my house. But the point, that's what it is. I don't want the cousins coming over here. But the point I'm making to you very clearly, and I'm making it real sick. I do those things because I know that those going to make my evening, it's going to make my day, it's going to make my flow, it's going to make her feel better. Oh, wow, come in the house, I ain't got to do that. Right, because I want her to be in a peaceful state. So yes, I'm going to do that. But the point I'm making to you is that's why, and I'm going to close on this, and don't you ever forget this, brother. If you want your marriage to be successful, you must love your wife as you love yourself, and you must honor her more than you honor yourself. Thank you for joining us here on Marriage Motivated Moments. I like that. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing y'all on Tuesday, July 19th. At 7 p.m. That's right, Tuesday, July 19th at 7 p.m. Thank you for the love. Thank you for the support. Continue to support us. We're getting thousands of supports on our multiple pages. Thanks for the messages. I pray that something that we said tonight will take you far beyond this dispensation in time. We leave you as we came before you, happy as ever and all covered up. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye. Shalom. Peace. Assalamu alaikum. Hotep. I'm out of here. Where's our producer?
I don't know. He might be doing another show right now.